absenting himself from anything on this issue, usually because of either an excessively honed sense of scruples or cowardice. I'm not sure which. It's submitted to you, the AFL-CIO's objection of the ceases to emerging.
Madam Secretary. Ready? All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and I would love for my favorite artist, Rich Van Gogh, to lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. Right now, we will go into public comment. Before we go into public comment, I do want to address when we called this meeting that I was told every council member would be here. Yesterday, at the last minute, two council members informed me that they cannot be here. I would ask Madam Clerk that possibly if we could get them on the phone, that would be fantastic. And the reason being, I'm not sure I will be here July 20th. So I just wanted to make that clear. At this time, let's take roll call before we go into public comment.
Breckus, absent. Dewar, absent. Delgado. McKenzie, absent. Jardin.
Here.
Bobzine. Sheevy.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you do have a quorum. As a reminder, there are only 4 of you present. So if anyone gets up to leave, we will need to pause the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Public comment.
Madam Mayor, our first public comment is from Mike Thornton.
You get to be first.
First, followed by Aria Overly.
Mayor, members of the council, Mike Thornton, Executive Director for Action. We are here opposing what we see as a subsidy for private development in the form of an interest-free loan for demolishing the 2 motels on Virginia. I will read this, and you've gotten copies of it as well. Because Reno's historical development policy approach has favored the interest of developers over those of local residents and local businesses, because outdated community development approaches all too often destabilize communities and leave many residents facing severe employment and housing crises, because it's estimated that there are more than 800 people in the Reno area that are homeless, and that the primary cause of homelessness is an insufficient supply of affordable housing, because Reno is currently facing record high average rents caused by high demand for housing and low housing supply, because Reno is facing a lack of skilled laborers and high paying jobs due to a lack of training programs and employers willing to train. We recommend the same things that we have been recommending related the community benefit agreements and community benefit policies that we've been proposing to the council over the last several months. These include public monies should be used to further an agenda of socially equitable development that includes 1, high-paying jobs for local residents, 2, centrally located affordable housing based on a principle of job housing fit and economic integration, aka mixed income neighborhoods, 3, support for local businesses, buy local programs, and local economic development, 4, providing employment ladders for local residents through certified training and apprenticeship programs, 5, paying appropriate wages, i.e. prevailing wage and/or living wage as warranted. The City Council should keep the goal of ensuring that there is sufficient truly affordable housing for Reno's working families at the forefront of the city's redevelopment agenda. Public monies should be used for public benefit. Action sees no reason why the public should pay the upfront cost of demolishing buildings that have been standing empty for many years simply because the economic situation now provides an incentive for the owners of this property to tear them down. And unless there is a clear and concrete benefit to the community, public funds should not be used to subsidize private development. I would also call your attention to the article that I provided to you that we received this morning from Elisa Barber, who outlines a number of reasons why providing this subsidized loan is inappropriate, and we agree with the vast majority of her comments. Thank you. Thank you.
Aria Overly, followed by Deborah Atchenberg.
Thank you so much. My name is Aria Overly. I'm an organizer with Action. Sorry, let me get out of the way so I don't hit it. Thanks. Thank you so much for listening to me today. Nevada has a lot of needs. We desperately need affordable housing. We desperately need high-paying jobs. We desperately need our government to invest in the betterment of our communities. One thing we do not desperately need are subsidies for private businesses that not only do nothing to contribute to the public good, but actively disincentivize developers from building the affordable housing that we desperately need. This project accomplishes nothing for our community except to help raise the property value of these motels and add to the coffers of private businesses. The property the owner being given the loan will accrue no penalties, interest, collection fees, or costs from being provided this loan. Additionally, this property is not unsellable in its current condition. Offers have been made on it. Private developers are willing to demolish these buildings without utilizing public funds, which requires us to ask why the city feels the need to utilize these funds in this way, as they appear to serve no other purpose than helping to ensure that the current property owners can be ensured a higher payout when they sell the property. Public funds should not be utilized to help increase the financial payout of private businesses. It should be used to support our community. The city is recommending spending 1/4 of its $1 million blight reduction fund to raise these motels. This is an unconscionable waste of public funds to subsidize a private business when blight in poor communities continues to be neglected by the city. This is a poorly thought out business subsidy and nothing more. We support creating a safer and less blighted downtown for the entire community. Public funds should be utilized to ensure that all Reno citizens have access to a better downtown, not to help ensure that private landowners, developers, and businesses are able to financially profit from the growth of our city. These funds should be used to support the growth of communities with inclusive zoning and low-income communities, and ensure that developers are working towards a city that serves all of us. Thank you.
Deborah Atchenberg, followed by Terry Hoffman.
Thank you, and thank you all for your service to the city. I'm Deborah Achtenberg. I'm a citizen. I'm not representing anyone else. I came here in 1982. I live near the intersection of Gordon and Monroe, and I teach philosophy at the university. But again, I'm representing myself. I want to ask some ethical questions, and I'd like to start by quoting the Our Town Reno website, not Art Town, but Our Town. The question that's asked on that site is, as Reno redevelops, what happens to our homeless and to our character? We're a city with a beautiful, livable downtown, but do we want it to be a downtown that's only for the well-to-do? Reno's always been friendly and open. It's always had a special character. Do we want to change that? What kind of a city do we want to be? And who has a right to the city? Only the well-to-do? And do we want to destroy all of our past? Can't we redevelop and keep some of our characteristic older buildings at the same time? Those are the questions I wanted to pose to you today. Thank you.
Terry Hoffman, followed by Julie Rice.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Hoffman. I recently retired as the REO administrator for the Reno Housing Authority. In that capacity, using grant funds over a 5.5-year period, I was responsible for the purchase of 207 single-family property units and 56 apartment units. These were largely rented to low-income families. I certainly recognize the need for low-income housing in Reno, and I have an affinity and empathy for that need. However, it does not make sense to me to use prime downtown Reno property for this purpose. You know, when I talk to people from out of the area, they say, You know, downtown Reno is nothing but tattoo parlors, liquor stores, and pawn shops. We need, I believe, to have something that's user-friendly to tourists, to increase tourism, which will provide additional money and for in the future for the development of low-income housing in the appropriate areas of Reno. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Julie Rice, followed by David J. Colbeck-Clausen.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Julie Rice, and I'm not used to doing this, and I'm very nervous.
That's
and
okay.
I'm
Just take your time.
here as my own person. I'm actually here to represent the working poor. I'm a waitress, and I've worked in casinos for 20 years in this town, and those are my people. And I want you all to please look at me when I'm speaking to you. Please look at me when I'm speaking to you. I think this is very important. I feel like the homeless gets more representation than the working poor. Go sit at the bus stop all day long and see who gets on and off those buses. It's people with lunch boxes and bad teeth, and they're going from underpaying jobs to, pardon my French, to substandard housing. And guys like the Bernie Siegel group are doing what you guys should in part be doing, and you all know it. They're being completely ignored. Nobody is representing them at all. And it hurts my feelings as a human that a casino, they're in part what's part of the problem. They want to landscape it instead of providing housing. Where do you think people are going to go? Restaurant supervisors at my work, at my casino, make $10 an hour. Where are they supposed to live? Where? Where are they supposed to go? There is nowhere left. I lived in Midtown. I can't afford to live there anymore. I live in an apartment on Neal Road now. That's the best I can do. I don't know. This is a real, true problem for thousands and thousands. The warehouses, the janitors, the daycare workers, it's real. And I understand that a city, I'm from Palo Alto, okay? I understand. You don't want Palo Alto, you probably do. I don't want Palo Alto as a downtown. That's why I came to Reno. And I'm just forgetting my point, and I'm sorry, I'm really, really, really not good at this, but listen, I feel like we're all members of the community. I voted for you, and I voted for you. You guys actually represent me. You don't only represent these people in business suits with money. You represent all of us, and please, please, please keep us in mind. Please, that's it. Thank you.
David J. Colbeck-Clausen, followed by Rich Van Gogh.
Hello. It's been a little while since I've been down here. So I left commercial real estate a little over a year ago because these issues were growing as the most important thing to work on in Reno. We were past the working with businesses to help with the recovery, and now we need to just make sure that we move forward as one community. So I'll be starting my Master's of Social Work starting this next fall, and hoping to connect more there. And thank you for your support of Pat and just the mission that he's on, serving the people at the Community Assistance Center. Really appreciate that. I'm glad Sparks stepped up to the plate with lots of pressure all over the place. So everybody's doing a lot of good right now. Let's use the blight money the same way. I agree with most of the points that have been made today about this. And just on an administrative level, the city website, if you click on the city council, it says that the agenda is not included for this meeting. And that I've already pointed out to staff and they can look, like if you click 6 times, you can get the agenda. And I'm a nerd, I will click 6 times. Most of the people are here because of advocates who went out and educated them on Facebook. But an average person who goes to the website to learn is not going to go hunting for that agenda. And so I think any vote today could be subject to litigation and is vulnerable to that. I am not an attorney, but those type of errors just show how hastily this was put together. Computers are not our friends. We haven't invented them yet, is kind of my opinion. Mm-hmm. And you just have to give yourself more time to put something out for this, not have a special meeting last minute. It's just impossible to cover all the details, to consider all of the options, to get everyone involved. And to really have this money do everything that we want it to do for the city of Reno. So one more, and this is just aside with my last few seconds, but we have a workers program that we put together, and I want the full story, but rumor on the street is that people in the program were used to clear camps, to clear out their own former neighbors down by the river. And just the spirit of that program cannot be that. And I hope that anything that even looks like that in the future is scrubbed from the program. There are plenty of things to clean up besides taking one person for a minimal fee and pitting them against someone at the river. And so I just ask that you look into that program and repair any damage. I know the graduation rate was not stellar, and even people who have graduated are not doing well. And just reevaluate how to make that more effective, maybe direct more of the funds to the people who are doing it instead of to administration.
Thank you. Councilwoman Jordan, I'm going to have you actually respond to.
Actually, I did want to clarify that, and I had the good fortune of spending a full day last week with the Reno Works participants in this graduating class. There is a 70% graduation rate. We have some really good success stories. There's always going to be those that don't sustain permanently moving out of a homeless situation. But we've certainly gone over and above to try to come up with programs that assist. With regards to the river cleanup, as I understand, they did not actually do the river sweep. After it had been completed, they went and picked up some of the remaining trash. They didn't touch the people's personal property. They simply removed trash from the river.
And I would just like to add, if any of you ever get the opportunity to come to council whenever we do the graduation, it is one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen in my life. And I'm just going to say that if we get one person to graduate, we've been successful. So thanks so much. Councilman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I appreciate the practice that we don't generally respond to public comment, but there was a rather serious charge that was just leveled at the council and the city about an agenda not appearing on the website. And I just was wondering if Madam Clerk, if you could just explain that. When I go to reno.gov/meetings, I see it, but am I seeing something that others may not have seen, or was there some glitch that we had to take care of? Just want to make sure we're clear about that.
To my knowledge, we have.
They just fixed it.
Timing.
Can you put the document camera? To our knowledge, the information is live prior to the 3-day requirement per open meeting law.
Yeah.
Residents are welcome and constituents can go to reno.gov/meetings. It has the full agenda as well as the packet, which is available to the public.
Just from past experience, I have expressed concern about finding those agendas immediately. If we could get a link maybe on the very front page that says agenda here for every meeting that we have, so it's really clear as day, because I've had problems in the past, so I want to make sure that those are as transparent as possible. And sometimes you're right. Well, and you're right, sometimes with computers, they sort of deceive us. So I want to make sure that everyone gets their agenda at all times.
We do also have the meeting portal, which is something that we always recommend that people can go to for the full packet, which is reno.gov/meetings.
I'm a geek, so I'll do that,
Yeah.
but an average citizen doesn't know
Yeah.
how to go.
Well, what we'll do, as the mayor has requested, we'll make
Is
the
it
updates.
posted on? Yeah, Councilman's right. There should be other ways that this should be posted. Just, some people don't even have online access.
Madam Mayor, if I might, I'm looking at the attorneys, but it's my understanding this meeting was posted legally. We do post it physically in various locations throughout the city. We do post it online. I know it can be challenging sometimes to find it online, but if you go to reno.gov, right on the bottom right hand, there's a button that says Watch Meetings. If you click on Watch Meetings, and it'll take you right to the link for the meeting. But Madam Mayor, per your request, we will
Yes.
put a link directly to the agendas somewhere on the homepage for future meetings.
Right. That would be fantastic. I would appreciate that. And then just to let you know, I can assure you that there was nothing that was done deliberately to
Yeah, it was
skirt
just
that.
done hastily,
Okay.
and so this mistake.
Well,
was made, but it says
I'm glad you pointed out. Thank you. That's great. I do appreciate it. Feel free, anytime you can email me or call me and let me know if you see anything like that. Well, it- you can. I'll make sure that you have all my contact information. Anytime. You can. Oh, okay. Okay, but thank you. I do appreciate it because like I said, now guess what? Because you came, then we'll have it on the front of the website. So thank you. Okay. All right.
Madam Mayor, our
Go
next
ahead.
public comment is from Rich Van Gogh, followed by Kelly Ray.
Hello.
Hello, Madam Mayor. You are my favorite mayor.
And you're my favorite artist?
Thank you. And members of the City Council, Andrew Klinger, Carl Hall. I am opposed to the money being spent for demolition, and it's mainly for a couple of reasons. One, I would like to see the buildings repurposed if possible. I don't think it's possible to force a person's hand to repurpose them, but I think tearing them down eliminates that possibility. And I know the City Council, and I know the mayor, and I know that you know that moving poor people out of town doesn't help. I know no one's living there now, but the artists and the musicians go with the poor people because they are the poor people. And you take the heart of town out of the heart of town when you tear down the heart of town. So I also would much prefer to see that blight reduction money be spent on improving a building instead of tearing two down. And I didn't come here to transfer this conversation to the Lear Theater, but I would much rather see $200,000 go to the Lear Theater and open that for people, for the community, for the city of Reno, and let the next person that's going to do this development pay to tear them down if they decide to tear them down. Or I think the Art Town paid about $50,000 or $60,000 in back taxes when they were given the Lear, and I would much rather see us try and wrangle that theater back from Art Town into the hands of the city, let the city own it. I offered to paint that building for free when it was given to Art Town, and they turned me down. So I smelled a rat immediately because nobody turns down a free paint job. So, you know, you can't get people in this city to give money to the Lear Theater. They've given millions and millions of dollars, literally millions. Moya Lear, 1.1 million, just herself. So I would like to see the people of the city fix that building, rehab that building themselves. My offer still stands. You supply the paint, I'll paint the building. But I'd like to see us get that building back and spend that money on actually unblighting a blighted building. I consider that blighted, and Alicia Barber's article on the blight, you know, raises some good questions. What legally or technically is a blighted building? As far as I'm concerned, the Lear Theater is blighted. It's been boarded since the day I moved into Reno in June of 2009. It's held 2 TEDx's, several theaters on its steps, but it could be open and used as a community theater, a gallery, live music, public area for people to do all sorts of things. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Rich.
Kelly Ray, followed by Ruth Stacy.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Kelly Ray, for the record. With all due respect to you, City Council and Mayor, as the current leaders of our biggest little city, I am asking today that no city blight funds be expended on the demolition of these parcels. The reason is simple. The owners have the financial means to demolish and/or mitigate the blight themselves with no assistance from us, you, us, the city, and you, the leaders of our community. The owners group recently turned down a multi-million-dollar offer on the properties without the courtesy of a counteroffer. This would indicate there was no intention of selling the properties. When asked point blank what they would be willing to sell the properties for, we received no response. I want to add a little bit not on my note card here. Affordable housing doesn't have to be yucky, ugly housing. Every project we've done in this town has been affordable, and they're quite nice. It doesn't have to be yucky, okay? We need, for the $10 to $14 an hour salary range, we need places to live, nice places to live. In the last 2 years, you as a group have led Reno into a hopeful future. Please keep up the good decision-making and vote against utilizing city funds for property owners who can afford to clean up or demolish their own property, or at least put them up for sale so somebody else can. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Ruth Stacy. Ruth Stacy, followed by Katie Colling.
Oh,
Katie
okay.
Colling, followed by Britton Douglas Griffin.
Hello, my name is Katie Colling. I'm with the Reno Initiative for Shelter and Equality. I'm also a Ward 4 board member, but I'm here as myself today. I'm here to talk about the voucher program that you guys recently gave some funding to. I've been bringing people around to different places and trying to get them in, because one of the issues with handing someone with a voucher is that they have to actually make it to the place to actually apply and use their voucher. So I've been driving them around. We found most of the people on the list the city/Restart gives them is no visitors, single occupancy, no pets, so no couples, and literally no community building. You just sit in your room by yourself, apparently. Many of the places we went to, you have to prove that you can make 3 times the rent each month. That's an unrealistic goal for a lot of people in poverty. And you needed to have a traditional job, so you couldn't do piecemeal work, which is what a lot of people do as well. The weeklies are full, most of them, and many of them don't have pets, so yet another group of people that are not included in this option. And most of the weeklies are not affordable. They're between $200 and $300 a week, which is a lot of money. Affordable housing should be $750 a month or less, and it is my opinion that looks are not as important as actual human life. The quality of life is more important than the standard of living, right? So when any money for blight is used to tear down a building versus improve an ability for someone to live in that building, you're wasting your time. I can't even believe you thought of it. These buildings are not blight. They were intentionally left abandoned in order for the property value to go up and become a seller's market. When you hear the words people over profit, you should think to yourself, is the property value more important than the humans living there, than the humans who could live there?
Madam Mayor, our next public comment is from Britton Griffith Douglas, followed by Trey Abney.
Hi. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. For the record, my name is Britton Griffith Douglas, and I stand before you today representing the Riverwalk Merchants Association, as I am their current president. I come before you regarding agenda item number 5, the possible reconsideration of continuance from the June 21st meeting awarding of a contract to abate hazardous materials and demolish 2 motels located at 420, 550, and 538 on North Virginia Street. During the council meeting that was held on July 21st, the Riverwalk Merchants Association spoke in favor of the demolition of these dilapidated buildings in an effort to continue with the city's blight efforts and the Riverwalk Merchants Association's own beautification programs, initiatives, and dedication to improving our downtown. Today, I return to you to present the board's opinion, as we are still strongly in favor of this action. We continue to grow our events, our downtown positive development, and are also striving to bring students to the Riverwalk and to Midtown by means of University Corridor. Many groups are now working together like they never have before to try to create partnerships that better fit our entire area. Allowing blighted buildings such as these to remain are not only a poor first and last impression to guests and locals, but they give the impression that we are not working together to build a better city. Instead, we are allowing places and buildings to be boarded up and forgotten. To keep our momentum moving forward, we want to enforce planning that provides for an environment that not only looks good to our tourists, but tells Reno that we are listening to you. We are making a downtown for all of us. The Riverwalk District stands with the Regional Alliance for Downtown today and asks that you demolish these buildings, helping us to make our city safer, cleaner, and inviting. Together, we believe that we can solve blight, improve downtown, and be proud of a place that we call home. We appreciate your time and your consideration in making a positive change towards Reno today. Thanks.
Trey Abney, followed by Ken Crater.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of council, city manager. For the record, Trey Abney, representing the Chamber of Reno Sparks in Northern Nevada. Here we are again. And if it's true that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, I represent 1,500 of them. 1,500 businesses who employ 64,000 people in this community. There have been a lot of issues raised to try to dilute and confuse this issue. Let me tell you what this vote is not about. It's not about affordable housing. Leaving those motels standing there today will not increase by 1 square inch the affordable housing in this town. This is a very important issue. Affordable housing is something that this council and this region needs to grapple with as we move forward. But I'm not convinced that even if you were to put affordable housing on our primary tourist corridor, that it needs to be in short, squat, 3-story, old, dilapidated buildings. Secondly, this is not about gentrification. This is about lifting all boats. This is about improving the community as a whole. This is about making sure that we have better opportunities for investment in these lots and other lots in this town that will improve and give more job opportunities to the people that live here. Third, this is certainly not about history. I know there seems to be a newfound historical significance in these dilapidated buildings that have sat there empty for 7 and 8 years, and all of a sudden, now we're worried about the history. I can't wait for the council meeting when you have to deal with the 52-year-old parking garage that you newly acquired and hear about how historical that structure is as well. That should be an interesting meeting. This is not about making the rich richer. This is about tearing down those buildings. It's perfectly legitimate to be upset that the property owners aren't tearing down these themselves. Perfectly legitimate. But you can't force them to do that. It's perfectly legitimate that you can be upset with the property owners for not selling these parcels to people that have offered to buy them. But you can't legally force them to sell those lots. And now you have the largest property owner in downtown willing to spend their own money. These private sector people in business suits willing to spend their own money improving these lots once these motels are torn down. This vote is about one thing only: tearing down these old buildings that are a blight on our main tourist corridor in this region. This council has listed cleaning up downtown as one of your top priorities, if not the top priority, and that has been reconfirmed in your Reimagine Reno process that the citizens have participated in. It is time to put our money where your mouth is. Madam Mayor, tear them down. Thank you for your time.
Ken Crater, followed by John Griffin.
Good afternoon and thank you. For the record, my name is Ken Crater. I have changed what I was going to say after listening to all the folks in the audience today, because I think there's some important background for council as well as the audience to hear. I chair the Blue Ribbon Commission for Operation Downtown. We have been active for many months now, since October of 2015, and we have already gotten quite an education in the issues that we're looking at in downtown Reno, which relate to homelessness, blight, addiction, mental health issues. And we have worked hard. We have prioritized those issues. And the 45 people now that are involved in this Blue Ribbon Commission, which include not just business leaders, but also nonprofit leaders, citizens, governmental leaders, our number one priority for our commission is dealing with affordable housing in our area. I also think it's important to note that the folks that own these properties, they're not millionaires. They're mom and pop investors that were talked to investing anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 of their hard-earned money to hopefully eventually make money by the redevelopment of this property. It was never intended that they would look at keeping these motels and fixing them up in any manner. And as a matter of fact, most of the folks that invested don't have the money to demolish these motels. And it's also important to note, I think there's been some misinformation in the paper. These folks have not invested, I think the paper said $2 or $3 million. I believe they have an investment of close to $9 million in this property. So you can't blame them for wanting to recoup a greater percentage of what they invested. Again, they're not wealthy people. A lot of these people are mom and pops, and it's important to their retirement to try and maximize the value of this property. This is also not something that the city council's been working on for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. You have been looking at and engaging in this project for well over a year. So I just want to put those facts on the table. I've also talked to the most well-respected structural engineer in the city of Reno that has significant expertise in dealing with historic buildings, Paul Ferrari. He told me that these buildings were likely only built to last 30 to 40 years. They've outlived their useful life. And if I can get the overhead put on, please. There's got to be more to Reno than having buildings that don't even meet our code requirements. We require buildings to be built on the street in downtown Reno with a pedestrian scale and a sense of presence. These buildings have no opportunity for any sort of real landscaping or pedestrian scale. You can see they're very similar in how they were developed. Most of these were built between 1955 and 1960. We can do much better. And in fact, this is what happens when you tend to have those long linear areas of parking. This is actually a motel on Arlington near 4th Street, but you can see what happens. You end up with not so great looking stuff right on our main corridor where we have tourists. This is what can happen if we demolish these buildings. We can bring in high-density, multifamily building with pedestrian scale, absolutely beautiful, more units. And I met yesterday with C.J. Manthe, who's the administrator for the Nevada Housing Division. There's a whole host of programs out there that we're looking at. And in fact, I'm working with the developer in a project right now to do an 80-20 plan similar to that being done at Summit Sierra, which that project alone would bring 120 new affordable units to our Reno area. So we need to reinvest and attract capital because that's what's going to allow us to move forward and develop more affordable housing, not saving some old dilapidated motels. We can do better. This Blue Ribbon Commission is absolutely committed to helping all people in this community. And I think people in the audience would be absolutely amazed at how passionate folks on this commission are to helping not just the business people, the rich people, but everybody in our community. And if we truly want to save historic buildings, then let's focus and try and save historic buildings like the old Motel Cortez. I mean, look at the difference between this and the motels. So your decision might be easy or difficult today, but the key is to make the right decision and move our city of Reno forward in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Griffin, followed by Emily Hobson.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, John Griffin here today on behalf of Eldorado Resorts. I will reiterate what we had talked about 2 weeks ago. The Eldorado Resorts is obviously a major participant in downtown, supports the mayor's and the council's efforts of cleaning up downtown and all the focus on beautifying our downtown area, which is, we've heard from surveys and studies, the first issue people complain about when they come to Reno is what they see when they get off the freeway. So, and unfortunately, these two motels are right there. Obviously, the arguments changed, or some of the discussions changed a little bit from where it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, this council gave an opportunity for an interested party to go make an offer and to work with the landowners to see if there was something feasible. It turns out that there isn't for one way or the other, so we're here today. Same position we were in 2 weeks ago. I just was sitting there looking up the definition of blight because it kind of was getting confusing earlier, but blight is defined as an ugly, neglected, or rundown condition of an urban area. I don't know what in the city of Reno fits that definition more than these two motels. I'll reiterate the offer from the El Dorado Resorts of a financial participation with the city after the motels are taken down for whatever it might become in an interim use before those properties are sold. Those properties may be sold next year, they may be sold 5 years from now. The city council's leadership and vision may desire those to be a parking lot, 3D concrete art, just a place for special events, art, or whatever. That's not our call, that's your call, and the property owner's call, and we're happy to work with you and participate in whatever that vision might be. Thank you.
Emily Hobson, followed by Paul Lennart.
Afternoon, my name is Emily Hobson. I'm here as an individual, but I'm a homeowner in Reno and a faculty member at UNR. To me, I'm here to oppose item number 5, the subsidy of demolition. To me, this is about 2 major issues. One is public money for private gain. The owners have evidenced the ability to complete the demolition through their purchase of other properties. If they want to complete demolition, they have the ability to do it. They don't need public subsidy. If we're going to spend public monies, it needs to be for public gain and not private gain. Certainly, an important public gain in the community is affordable housing, among many other issues. Speaking not for the university, but as a university faculty member, I'm certainly interested in many aspects of the ideal of a university town, but there's one measure that I don't want to meet. I do not want UNR to match, for example, the California State University system, which recently completed a study that found that across the system, across the many campuses in California, at least 10% of all Cal State students are homeless. And that figure is very clearly higher in certain cities like Los Angeles, Sacramento, San Francisco. I do not want to see Reno or UNR be sites of a homeless student population, which we will surely see if the housing market around the university becomes higher and higher in cost, and only the wealthiest students are able to live around it. So that is one aspect among many aspects, that students are among the working poor and among the lower middle class, and we're not going to benefit them along with anybody else of any age if we don't prioritize public money for public good. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our last public comment is from Paul Lennart.
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I wish you were all here, but so it goes. My name is Paul Leonard. I do live in Reno. I am wearing the Action t-shirt today, but I am not speaking on behalf of Action. I am speaking on behalf of myself because I'm about to propose something that goes far beyond anything that Action probably would ever propose. One of the gentlemen that spoke made the point that the 2 motel properties involved, well, there's several motels involved, are private property, and therefore nothing much can be done about their dilapidated condition unless someone else acquires them, and that has to be based on a willingness of the current owners to go with a different use or their demolition as paid for by public funds as has been proposed under item 5. But I'm wondering whether we aren't restricting our imagination a bit too much. Yes, we do have a housing crisis in Reno. One of the major blights on the city is the number of people who have nowhere to live. I myself am the stepfather of someone who would love to find affordable housing in Reno, but so far is still living in California, outside of the area where he gets his disability, which is Reno, okay, because he cannot afford to live in Reno. No, he cannot live with me. He is insane. He did beat me up once, okay? A modest proposal. and I do not mean it satirically as Jonathan Swift did. I do mean it's modest. If you don't use it, you lose it. If you cannot maintain your property in some useful condition, why is it impossible for the public, as represented by its city government, to acquire that property and put it to a better use? Why does property always trump community? As it happens, property doesn't always trump community. If you're a small player, plenty of public bodies will use eminent domain against you, usually to transfer your property to a larger private player. Why is it impossible for the community to take possession of unused buildings that could be housing people with some rehabilitation, and while owning it, turn it over to community groups such as RISE to rehabilitate them? There's plenty of private energy available among nonprofits and among citizens to go ahead and make better use of buildings that have stood empty for too much time. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we have
Thank
no
you.
further public comment.
Madam Secretary, do you have any public comments that have been submitted that we have not heard? And
We
if there
have-
are, I would like to hear them.
We have public comments submitted online for the actual agenda item, seeing as there's only one. We did receive opposition from Brian Lynn, Billy Andrews. They sent in their online public comment form in opposition. In favor, we received Jim Frommer as well as Daryl Clifton from representing RAD. Additionally, the clerk's office received 7 letters in opposition from Francis Tryon, Barry Lynn, Deb Lander, Marks Taxer, Eric Swanson, Vicky Dame, and D. Brian Berghardt. Those letters are at the dais with you today.
All right, thank you very much. Okay,
Madam Mayor, we're on item 4, approval of the agenda.
all right, may I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Madam Mayor, this brings us to item 5, possible reconsideration of continuance from the June 21st, 2016 City Council meeting to the July 20th, 2016 Council meeting, and the award of the contract to abate hazardous materials and demolish 2 motels. Madam Mayor, I spoke to the City Attorney's office about this item, and it may be better to do this sort of in 2 motions, to take 1 motion for the reconsideration and then take up the discussion on whether or not to award the contract.
Okay. So you'd like us to take a motion right now to reconsider? All right, may I get a motion?
Move to reconsider.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. So then at this time, I would like to request a staff presentation.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Council. Alex Woodley, Code Enforcement, City of Reno. We currently don't have a PowerPoint-type presentation because what you have before you is the awarding of a bid for the demolition of these properties. I will give you a little background. We did a sort of a presentation at the last City Council meeting. To give you some background information, these buildings were abandoned back in 2009, and since then they've been standing boarded up in the downtown corridor. For the past 10, 12 years, I've been to over 100 public meetings where I've always been demanded, why won't the city demolish buildings? I wish some of these citizens were there with me at these meetings, because so many times that's what we heard from constituents within the downtown area and property owners and business owners. As you know, our blight initiative, the idea behind it is to address blight from multiple perspectives, multiple tools. It just so happens that demolition, which is what's used throughout the entire country in all 50 states, is one of the primary tools used by cities to deal with blighted properties. The state law specifically provides us pretty much two options with a boarded up building, which is an abandoned building, which is to board it up or demolish it. We do not have within our police powers the ability to acquire the property, to take the property, to repurpose the property. The only authority that the state gives us, just similar to the other 49 states within the country, is to board up the property, abate whatever nuisance exists, or if necessary, demolish the property. So, and that's where we are today. That's why we find ourselves with this contract before you today, which is to move forward with the abatement of these structures. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, one of the top priorities for this council is thriving downtown. And as we heard when we went through the Reimagine Reno process, where we reached out to over 6,000 citizens, downtown was number one really on everyone's mind. This council also set aside funds for our blight mitigation program, and the strategy for reaching out and demoing properties is one of the tools that we have in our tool chest to deal with blight. And really the way staff sees this is we see this as a potential catalyst project, just like we've done other projects. I know there were some comments made earlier about this being a subsidy. This is not a subsidy. What ends up happening is a lien goes on the property. If that lien or if the funding for the demo is not paid back within 3 years, there's actually a mechanism where the city could end up owning the property.
So we would have more control over it under this action.
Potentially, yes, potentially.
I want to make sure that that's very clear.
So the choice before you today, Madam Mayor and council members, is whether or not to approve the contract for the demolition. There was an agreement, Madam Mayor, that you signed, but it was really more symbolic. That was really just an agreement to give us permission to actually go on to the property. But before any action can be taken, approval of this agreement would have to be done here by the city council.
And I do want to clarify and point out with transparency, whenever I signed that contract, I knew that it was coming back to council for an approval. I would never sign anything that this council would not have control over. So I want to make that very clear. So thank you for pointing that out. Okay. All right, Councilwoman Jordan, go right ahead.
Thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions. Alex, you have dealt with a lot of blight in our city for many, many years. I did want to talk for a moment. Can you give any examples that you can point to of the taxpayers funded calls for service related to maybe you have an example of a boarded up building and the maybe average per month calls for service, and then if a building was demolished and it was a vacant lot, what that does, generally speaking, in your experience, to calls for service to the city?
Yes, ma'am. I'll give you a perfect example. Was the Zanzibar Hotel, which those of you who have been in Reno for a long time may remember that. It was located across the street from the Pepper Mill, and it stood abandoned for many years. Unfortunately, we actually had 3 deaths on that property from homeless individuals, whether they died through a fire trying to stay warm within the vacant building, or they died from the elements. Actually, bodies froze. At that particular property, our average per month, whether it was the police department and code enforcement, was anywhere between 5 to 10 times per month. We also, the normal average calls for service, there's an estimate that we've used throughout the city throughout years, which is approximately about $500 per call for service. If you have multiple officers, obviously it's much more than that. Same for the code enforcement, it's very similar. Obviously, when we have something like a death or requiring the securing of the property, that takes several hours. On that particular property, the building was demolished, and once it was a vacant lot, for the entire year, because we looked at it the first year, we had 0 calls for service on that exact same property, whereas previous to that, we were getting 5 to 10 calls a month, especially during the winter months.
All right, thank you very much. You know, my other concern is, I mean, let's just say, you know, it's a private property owner, so they have the right to do with it what they want. There are 62
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Private
62
owners of this, so can you only
investors.
imagine trying to get 62 people on the same page? And so part of my fear is if they decide not to sell it, that is their right. And let's say they decide not to sell it for 20, 30 years, there is nothing that the city could possibly do about that.
That is
And so the fear is those buildings could actually stay there and cause a lot more harm around the entire area than good. You had people living in there, we found needles in there. It also devalues the other properties around there. So it becomes a very sticky situation. At the end of the day, maybe they don't sell the property in 10 or 15 years. And that to me is very concerning, especially being in the corridor. And I've had a lot of students, lots of conversations with them, being afraid to walk past there because homeless people have been living over there. I think, you know, we have an opportunity. It was the #1 issue to clean up downtown. This council felt very, very strongly about it. And the hard part is, you guys, here's the really big hard part. If we have, let's say, $10 million, everyone in this room is going to find a different way to spend it. And I couldn't agree with you more. We absolutely need more affordable housing. We're looking at ways that we can, I don't know if you want to call it, incentivize developers to come in and start doing these housing projects so that we can bring in much more affordable housing. We are looking at that. We know now more than ever, these are things that are going to be huge issues for this council. This council cares greatly. I've never seen a more caring and thoughtful council, I have to tell you. But it's very different than whenever I sat up here 3 years ago. Very different. Almost overnight, Reno was sort of put on this national map. And we're all lucky to live here, and we are all one community. And at the end of the day, we all want something in the downtown corridor that's going to bring more jobs, that's going to attract more tourism, that's not going to be a safety or health hazard. So I really appreciate your comments. Thank you very much.
I just really feel like I have to say.
Um,
They have, Mr. Fromer has
pu-
already
we
said
will-
that they can sell the property, they can afford to pay for their own demolition. And in
Excuse me,
essence,
excuse me,
in
excuse
essence,
me.
it winds up being extortion.
Point of order, sir. So, again, maybe sort of addressing, this council cannot come in there and say, hey, we want you to sell this property for this price. Trust me, I love what Kelly Ray does. I think you're one of the most talented developers in this city, bar none. So, excuse me. First of all, that's a lien on the property, and I see it as the city will be able to have more leverage on a property if they do not pay us back. But I can tell you what, this council is not going to be on the hook for that, and I want to send that clear message to urban Nevada land. That's first and foremost. And I tried over a year ago to get something going on that property. And when you have that many people that are sort of controlling it, it's really difficult. I told you at the last meeting, I wanted to put artists in there and entrepreneurs and do, you know, an art park, and other cities have it, put food trucks on there. It's very cool. But at the end of the day, there wasn't anyone that was willing to come on there and do that type of project. And so I think, you know, downtown, we have an opportunity to get it right, but we also, we're getting ready to go into heavy tourist season down there, schools getting back in. And this was the one thing this council said we wanted to focus on, was really, really revitalizing downtown. So, you know, when you say that it's a subsidy for big developers, I would disagree in the sense that they have to pay the city back. By the way, Barry Lynn, you wrote a fantastic letter to me. If you have a copy, I'd love to see it. I think you make some excellent points in there that have to be in this contract. So I think if you have it with you, if you could give it to Madam Secretary, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, Councilman Bobzian.
I just wanted to point to a blog post that was alluded to earlier in public comment. That was from Alicia Barber, and I did trade some emails with her and understood that she's not going to be coming today to share this. But I think for those in the audience, as well as I think for us on council, it's important, I think, for us to read it and think about it. Because I think where we are is a point in time. And I detected Alex's frustration when he first stepped to the mic. And it's a frustration that I have seen from this gentleman many, many, many times over the years as the two of us have had our long conversation and at times disagreements with the tools and strategies that should be available to the city of Reno in dealing with blight. And it's kind of amazing to think about where we were when we first had those conversations, probably in the 2007 legislative session, subsequent sessions, and where we are now, just how much has completely changed, and the stakes and the issues facing our community have so dramatically changed. You know, this is a council of action, and Madam Mayor, to you and to Operation Downtown for putting this together. You know, I think it is important that we move forward and that we do take this next step. I think you laid it out very clearly. This is putting skin in the game on these properties, given the limited set of tools that the legislature in the state in the past has given to the city of Reno. We have not foreclosed any concept for the property other than, you know, the structures that are there. But what Alicia's blog post points to, I think, is something for all of us to contemplate as we go forward and we think about the next block and the next block and the next project. It's almost inevitable when you have fast-moving change, fast-moving progress, that some folks are not going to feel like they have a seat at the table. And as we take in public comment from all sides on these issues, I think it is up to us to double down on our efforts to make sure that everyone is included. I know that Puma, the group that's doing our downtown action plan, they are meeting with a lot of the same folks that have expressed concern about this particular project. And I think that that's a wonderful example of how we are being inclusionary and talking about what the overall strategy is for blight and how we're moving downtown forward. And I think that we need to take those additional steps, look for other opportunities to make sure that there are more seats at the table for folks to think about these issues on a citywide scale.
All right, thank you, Councilman Delgado.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Alex, for that presentation. I know as when we as a council from the surplus allocated $1 million to go towards a blight initiative and carving out a quarter of that for downtown specifically, and really leveraging the Operation Downtown and the mayor and Councilwoman Jordan as kind of the visionaries as to how that $250,000 would be utilized. Was a big part of the conversation, and knowing that the council supported what Operation Downtown was doing in terms of the people that are associated with that group. A lot of nonprofits, a lot of people that do a lot of the work down there. And then from hearing a lot of public comment, I feel as though we can go down a slippery road in terms of trying to solve all the social issues and really just trying to bring everything back into context. We're really here for one reason, and that's because we have some slumlords downtown that haven't stepped up to take care of the properties over nearly a decade ago. And it's really unfortunate that these slumlords have been sitting there and now devalued and really become an issue to not only the casino industry, but a lot of the new development that's taking place at university. It's really becoming a public safety issue. It's a quality of life issue and ultimately an economic development issue. I sat back and I thought really hard about this. I'm not the biggest fan for really using the allotment of the $250,000 to go towards these two properties, but also knowing that these two properties on our main corridor, they're on a gateway. They're on the ingress of the city of Reno. They're a front and backyard in many different ways. Knowing that also as part of the blight initiative that we made sure that there was a lien associated with any demolition so that if those funds are used, they will be recouped and will go back towards the downtown assessment. So they'll be coming back towards downtown to do additional programs or different types of work in order to attack blight. You know, I hope that also the rest of everyone else is watching is that we have other blight initiative funds that are available. And I'm looking forward to the neighborhood renewal grants. They're going to really be doing a lot of work in our neighborhoods, doing a lot of work in terms of how we can work with those people that lived on fixed incomes, such as first-time home buyers, such as seniors. There's money there to make sure that we can go and do that work. This work, the money that's being spent here is directly for the downtown area, which again is not so much associated with affordable housing and workforce development as much as trying to clean up downtown for opportunities that will hopefully bleed into those other sectors and those other areas. I don't want it to get so complicated that we lose sight as to what these funds are for. So, you know, it's been tough to try and visualize that and to work about how to best spend this when we're really trying to help these people that have really been sitting on their hands for the last decade and haven't really stepped forward and working with us. I know, Madam Mayor, when you and I got elected, we wanted to clean up downtown and we reached out to them and they didn't want to play. And that's been now 4 years. They came back to us 2 years later and expanded their STAR bonds without really working with us and trying to do that. And yet we're going to step up and try and help them out again. And so it's my hope that the council, when we recoup those dollars, that will be thoughtful about the partners that we want to work with. I know I would not be supportive of this if it were not on Virginia Street, because ultimately location is what's going to deter me to kind of the tipping point here in terms of seeing how these dollars should be spent. But it's kind of, they've got us in a corner, which is unfortunate.
Great, thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Jordan, anything else?
Thank you. I don't know if we're, if council has more questions or if we're prepared for a motion.
Go ahead, make a motion.
Motion to approve the contract with Q&D for the demolition of the 2 motels on Virginia Street.
Okay, and I would like to add, and I apologize, Barry Lynn, your email was up here. I just have a lot of stacks of paper here. I wasn't aware, so I want you to know. I do think she brings up some very good points, so I'd like to add this in the motion.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Excuse me.
Yeah.
There's only one item on the agenda, and that's to approve or disapprove the contract.
Oh, okay.
So that's the only motion pending before the council right now. So if we can proceed with that.
All right. All right, so I have a motion. Do you have a second? Oh, before we do that, do you mind if we go into public comment?
Madam Mayor, Katie Calling would like to speak on this
Okay,
item.
great, thanks. Come on up.
Katie calling. Improving property value is giving someone money. You are giving them money when you improve their property value. They might even accept an offer if you weren't going to pay for their property value to increase. I'm sure they would be open to other offers. And I'm really happy that you guys chose to help someone with money versus someone who needs money. Again, big surprise.
Madam Mayor, our next public comment is from Barry Lynn, followed by R.A. Drew.
Thank you. For the record, Barry Lynn. I had some suggestions because it seemed as though this was probably going to pass, given the circumstances. I am ethically opposed to this expenditure. If each one of the 62 investors simply gave $3,435, they could pay for their own demolition. That doesn't seem like a lot of money to come up with when you've invested $50,000 to $200,000 in this property. It's regular maintenance. When you invest in something, you have to continue to invest in it. So the conditions under which I could possibly support this expenditure is that, first and foremost, we need to know the identity of the 62 investors behind Northern Nevada Urban Development so that we know who we're doing business with. We need to see tax returns and bank statements to prove they don't have the funds for their own demolition. We need an appraisal on this property now, and we need to see 3 months of marketing on a national real estate website to ensure that there are no market value offers for the property before spending taxpayer dollars. We need another appraisal when the property sells to see how much extra they owe the city. We should get a return on our investment. An assignment of rents clause needs to be added to the demolition agreement in case they lease the parcels to the El Dorado for a parking lot or something else and are earning income on them while there is a lien in place. Any rental income should go directly to the city to pay off the debt. The lien should be attached to all 10 parcels on the block, not just the 3 parcels containing the motels that are being demolished. If the city does end up having to take these back, who will want just these 3 parcels surrounded by more boarded up motels? We better place a lien against all 10 parcels because we have no performance track record for this developer. I don't think they've ever developed anything. And the most important thing, number 6, is to freeze the transferring of the sewer credits associated with this parcel, with these parcels. Because it's my understanding that the owners are getting the sewer credits back. If they transfer and sell them off, and then the city has to take these parcels back, that's a major part of the value of the properties that's missing. So that needs to be frozen. So I think with these conditions, I could support this, but I'm not sure that the owners would go for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next public comment is from R.A. Drew.
Right.
Good afternoon. Madam Mayor, I have spoken to you personally in public forums about the homeless situation. As far as I understand it, from what I've heard, I cannot believe what I'm hearing. I cannot believe the maybes and we thinks and probably, and I guarantee you, any attorney, and there's attorneys present who know that the wool is being pulled over the public's eyes here. You guarantee that the city is not going to be stuck with this bill? Where is that written down? You want to approve something where it's not written down that there is a guarantee that this money is going to be paid back? This cannot be approved today. That doesn't mean it can't be approved later. It cannot be approved today. You have so much community opposition to this that the community has to feel that it has not been listened to and that its concerns are being ignored yet again. And I hope that the community is up in arms if this is approved today. The mayor herself has problems with the agenda item, and now we're going to vote on it? If the mayor herself has problems with the agenda item and all you can do today is approve or disapprove, then you have to disapprove and wait a minute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our last,
Anything else?
we have one last public commenter, David J. Colbert Clausel
Okay.
would like to speak.
Great.
Hello, David J. Colbert Clausel for the record. Needles, if needles are the blight, then they're all over town. I mean, I'm
right.
cleaning them up from
You're
Holcomb Park Median, so I guess we have to tear down the bus stop.
No,
You know,
that's not the point.
so exactly, that's
the
it. I don't think that's relevant to
Right,
calling this
right.
property blight.
Okay.
And so, save that money for drug rehab or to somehow increase enforcement or investigations so that we can get these people into programs, the people, not one building that they happen to be using. I mean, there's so many more bushes and places by the river and other abandoned buildings that, or even on that lot, we're still going to find needles there. It's just the reality. It's unfortunately a problem we have in Reno right now.
I would agree
And
with
it's going to increase from what I understand because now that medications are being cut off for more people for all sorts of different reasons. Pain meds are not a good way to treat diabetes, for example. But that those issues are happening, and the people who have been receiving those medications are more predisposed to heroin, and it's just a reality that we have to get ready to face, and you're going to need that money to do it. So I just wanted to put that one last piece in there.
All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor, we have no further public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilwoman Jordan.
Thank you very much. My motion still, as I hear from legal, needs to stand in the form that it was made as a simple approval of the demolition contract with Q&D. But I do wonder if we have an opportunity to ask staff to maybe come back with some of the suggestions that were brought forward today with regards to the use of the property, some of the other things that Ms. Lynn brought forward at a future meeting. Can we say that on the record?
I think there's
But not
already,
part of the-
there's already a plan in the works. I believe it's scheduled for July 20th.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
perfect. All right, my motion
right.
stands.
All right, so I have a motion, and second discussion.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
If I could I just want to be clear on the record that, yeah, those conditions that were discussed would come back in the form of the consent agreement with the property owners. I just want the council to be aware, if you go forward with this agreement today and you award the bid, then you're locked in on that bid, all right? So there is no turning back on that. So if you were to terminate that bid because you didn't get those conditions later on in the consent, then you're potentially going to be terminating that contract, and there'll be some expense that would be associated with that. So I just want to make you aware, if you want to go ahead and make sure you get those conditions and not incur a cost with this, we'd recommend that you push it to the July 20th date so that you could get it all wrapped up in one package. Does that make sense?
All right, perfect. So discussion, just really quickly. I was looking back through some of the past redevelopments that we've done, and I came across one that to sort of understand, because many of us were not here whenever, we were in this recession, and we weren't seeing a lot of redevelopment. But it's very similar. I came across one where the city had a very beneficial partnership also with Kelly Ray over the fire station at Morrill, and she paid back the loan. And so I think in some ways, these are private-public partnerships, and they can be very, very successful. So that being said, I'd love to work with Kelly Ray to look at other properties that maybe the city owns. We certainly have some parcels, maybe even at Reno Housing Authority, because I would love to see you do some other projects in the city of Reno. So I don't know where you are. I don't see you, Miss Ray, in the room. But where are you? Oh, she left. Okay, sorry. But I was looking at one, and I saw that she had done market rate housing on Morrill Street, where the city gave her a loan, and it was paid back to provide housing. So anyway, all right, thank you. Councilman.
Yeah, just to kind of tag along on that, as we've been dealing with this issue over the past few weeks on this, I was thinking about my own sort of experiences with repurposed motels and all the different projects that I've seen that have been very successful. I mean, I've stayed in them in Las Vegas, Portland. There's a great one in Bend, Oregon. I mean, there's all sorts of examples, and there's certainly all sorts of opportunities in this city going forward when we can look at that. So that's interesting to hear that there is that track record of partnership with Kelly Ray. And to my earlier comments about trying to find ways to, again, further the collaboration and work with people, I hope what comes out of this is that next step and that extended hand to sit down with Kelly, with other interested developers, to try to find ways that, maybe we're not using it from the Blight Fund, but we have other tools at our disposal to
Well, and I
promote
think
this
if
kind of
we have
infill development.
parcels that we can utilize, that we have control over, because this we don't have control over. We don't own this parcel, so that's where I think it gets a little bit more difficult. So
And to address the affordable housing stock, because there's no question that that is a fundamental challenge.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. So I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. All right. Madam Secretary, any more public comment?
We have no public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Move.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm very humbled to know that I'm a voice for